it makes me smile when people come in like, oh, I want to open up a bookstore and I'm going to do this. It's just like somebody told me I could. And so I was crazy enough to think that I can.
Yes.
And so I just want to be that person that lets people know that you can.
What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Let It Be the Podcast. I'm your host, Fergie, and today I have a special guest with me. I got Miss Nia-Tayler. Nia, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Nia, if you don't know, Nia is the owner of BlackLIT, the bookstore, but she's so much more than a bookstore, and so I'm excited to get into all the things Nia outside of Nia BlackLIT.
Okay.
So first things first, when I first heard about BlackLIT, to be honest, I saw it online. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And it was like always on my to-do list. Like I need to go to BlackLIT and see. But I think at the time I just was like stuck in the house and I didn't want to go anywhere. But I remember I had met somebody who was hosting an event there. And it was the first time I ever went. And it was kind of like, it was a lot of people. So I just came in and I sat down. But I had no idea that a space like that existed. And I'm going to get into all the things of like what that space like means to me. But the event was so cool just to see a space full of women empowering each other. And I was like, dang, I love it here. So thank you so much for even being obedient and creating a space, because I know, because like I've experienced so much through BlackLIT and I know that it's impacted so many people. But is that something that you ever thought that it was going to like become when you first had that idea?
Yes and no. I felt like God was gracious enough to surround me with people who spoke life into me in that way, that let me know what it could be. But I'm human, so at the same time, I just didn't understand the how.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the how, but
I think the how is like that trips us up sometimes, especially coming from like, I don't know like what it was like for you growing up, but for me, I had never seen a Black bookstore, like, and it was not, I mean, not to like shade nobody else, but it was like a nice place for us to go and have nice events, you know what I'm saying? And so that I was the most impressed by that alone. I was like kind of in awe. And like I said, like, I didn't see anything like that growing up, so I know how important it is for that representation, like for this generation now. But before we get too deep into BlackLIT, like introduce yourself. Let us know like who you are, where you from. Tell us something fun about yourself. What you like to do on the weekends.
my name is Nia-Tayler, and in addition to being the founder and CEO of BlackLIT, I'm also a mother, a former educator. Those are all titles, huh?
Titles.
I also really, really love Jesus. Something fun about me. But you asked what I like to do on the weekends.
Just something that most people would know. Yeah.
Sleep these days.
Girl.
I don't hit 30, so sleep it is. But for me, fun is, I like to be outside.
Like nature walks, like hiking or something?
Yes.
Do you like play, I don't want to say play in the dirt, but like do you plant, are you like a flower girl?
I actually love plants. I would consider myself a plant mom. That is my weekend hobby activity. I have about 30 something plants.
Do you?
So yeah,
like
I definitely love plants.
Was that something like during the pandemic? I had like 24 plants and I have like 3 left. So
COVID did actually start my journey with plants. I was getting very impatient with not knowing what was next in terms of COVID, and my grandmother was like, you need to get a plant or something.
Wow.
And so that's where it started. And
where are you from?
I love it. That's such a hard question for me because I moved like every year as a kid, but I was born in Long Island and I grew up in Maryland.
Okay.
Peachey County, Maryland.
Okay. So Texas, that is a far way. How did you end up in Texas?
Young and dumb, if I'm being honest. But it turned out really good.
Okay.
It definitely turned out really good. After I got my master's here in Texas and I started teaching, I was honestly constantly looking for a way out. Like I was ready to go back home, but I felt like God told me to stay here.
So you came here for school?
No, remember I told you I came here young and dumb. I came
okay.
here. I came here.
We ain't gotta get too deep into it. I just was curious. Like a lot of people, Texas is a melting pot. I rarely meet people that are actually from Texas. So I was just curious. We ain't gotta go all deep into it though.
No.
Okay.
I ended up here because of a man.
Oh.
And
Yeah. Got
0
it.
out of 10 would not recommend.
Okay. That's cool. Anyways, so Texas, you were an educator. How did we connect? But that ties into the bookstore, so I'll get into that a little bit later. But what is BlackLIT? Like, tell me, like, I know that you didn't I assume you didn't grow up like, I want to own a Black-owned bookstore. What is BlackLIT? Like, tell me, how did that come about?
So 2 things. One, I would say the student in my class. So while I was teaching, I realized that my students they had no connection to books. They really did not like it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the comment that was made, I don't read Miss I'm Black, was
a
like
student said that to you?
For all of it. Yeah, middle of class. And I thought it was a bad joke, and I was really just waiting for one of the kids to say, like, that's not funny. Like, we read. And they did not. They agreed with him, and it was just like, okay. So I made them like a promise, like a bet, like, I bet y'all I can find a book that y'all like to read.
Yeah.
And so that's where BlackLIT started, was really trying to find a solution for them. But I think it also started in my home growing up. Like, my dad and my grandmother kind of cultivated a BlackLIT in our home. Like, I watched them pass books up and down the steps. I watched them create a safe space for people that were family and people that were not. I watched them just love on people and be kind to people regardless of how old they were, where they came from, whether they were related. And so, I don't know. I feel like that's what let me know BlackLIT was possible.
Yeah.
In a sense.
And I want to say something about that, because I'm going to be honest. Growing up, when you come from a certain environment, it's hard to like know that these certain things are possible for you. Because I was one of those kids. Yeah. Like I had a troubled like youth, and I didn't believe that I could like do necessarily great things. It was just like a fantasy, you know. Mm-hmm. And I remember my aunt used to always get on me like, you need to read, you need to like go outside, do other things, like, because like back in the day, all I cared about was downloading, being on LimeWire, making mixed CDs, you know. Like I wasn't thinking about reading, I wasn't thinking about all those things. I looked at it as a punishment. And so for a child to tell you that, like, oh, I don't read, miss, I'm Black, like if you're honest, you look on the TV, some of the things that they were portraying, you don't get to see. And I know like maybe growing up, like the Cosby shows and certain shows that we got a chance to see, but then it kind of faded away. And so the things that was getting our attention wasn't, let's go read books, let's go empower ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So in a way, I can kind of like, as heartbreaking as it is for me to say that, like, I can see like, oh, that's for us. Like we can do that too. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like that's sad, because I would have never went to college if it wasn't for one, me remembering like all those things that my aunt used to say to me about like, there's so much more you can do with your life. You don't have to stay here. You can go like read a book, explore your imagination. I just was like, girl, why you always nagging me? But now I live off of those words because there is so much more to life. But if you don't know that there's a saying that, I always think about this. They say like, put money in a book, I bet you they'll never find it. That if you want to hide something, you hide it in a book. And that's like true, but like sad. Like, you know, and I think that we are changing that narrative for sure. Yeah. But thank you. Thank you, first of all, for being a young Black educator. And I know like teachers don't get the respect that they deserve, for one. They don't get paid enough to care, to be honest. So you really have to have a heart. But something that student said to you, like, look at what came from that, you know, from your obedience. Like, hey, I can do something about that. You know what I'm saying? And it's because of what you were exposed to as a child. And so the impact of our yes, like you just never know how far it's going to go. Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you, first of all, like to be young and care like that. Like I am amazed, like, you know. For real. I know that probably sounds crazy, but I am.
At the same time he said it to me, my son was maybe 1. I don't even know if he was 1 yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just, I felt like I seen everything flash before my eyes.
So growing up, did you think that, like, what were your plans? Because, like, we have our plans and then God has his. What was your plans?
Like in school when they asked, like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
I would change my answer every time. I never wanted to just do one thing,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Like, I went through a phase where I wanted to play professional basketball. I went through a phase where I wanted to do, like, news and broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to a phase where I was going to go into healthcare.
You really have done a lot of things. You lived a lot of different lives.
It was crazy as I did them all.
Yeah, I'm about to say, you lived a lot of different lives.
I did do them, but I don't know. I never really found the one thing or the one thing that would make me put everything else kind of on the back burner until BlackLIT. So I don't know.
I love that. So BlackLIT wasn't, like, in your plans, but it came about, like, you being an educator. So because I remember when you told me that you, like, actually played basketball. Did you go overseas and play, or you were?
I did, but let me just. I played basketball,
Mm-hmm.
but my coach from the day, like, I was decent, but how do I say it? I just remember my coach saying, like, don't let the game use you. Like, you gotta get some lessons out of this. Like, he been drilling in my head, it's bigger than basketball. Like, he told me that so many times. It's always bigger than basketball. And so I played basketball, but I never wanted to just stop playing basketball. I wanted to see how far
you could go
with basketball.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to know the ins and outs of the basketball industry, whether it was, like, marketing, whether it was, like, traveling, whether it was. So I love the game for that. But I don't know.
You just didn't want to be put in a box.
I did not.
Yeah, I feel that. That's exactly how I feel. I feel like, don't tell me what to do, what I can do, what I can be. If I want to do everything, I'm going to do everything. And
I was definitely that girl.
Yeah, growing up.
Yeah.
That's how I was with radio, because, like, when I worked, when I interned with Hot 103 Jams, I wasn't on air there, but I got a chance to see how an actual station is ran. I wanted to know how to edit. I wanted to know how they did their promotions, community relations, like, everything. I was one of those kids who used to take apart those mechanical pens and pencils and build them back. Like, I was always curious to that nature. So from basketball, what was teaching like for you? How long did you teach?
About 5 years. Basketball. So honestly, I decided to be a teacher because I wanted to be, like, on my son's schedule, to be honest. Like, I was initially in healthcare, but I felt like with that career, it would just take me away from him a little more. And so I went into teaching and coaching basketball. It's what I knew. I had just finished doing it, so I was only a couple of years older than them. And so that's pretty much how teaching started for me. I picked English because I didn't want to be put in a box. Like, there's a right answer when it comes to math.
Yeah.
Somebody feels like they have a right answer when it comes to history. English, how you going to tell me what I got from what I just read?
I like that.
So that's why I picked English. And I'll be honest, my reading for fun, I didn't pick English because I just love to read, to be honest. I picked English because I love the freedom that comes with it. And so that's what BlackLIT is here for. Like, a reminder that you can be both Black and literate, or Black and whatever you want to be. It's a reminder that there's freedom in Blackness, and there's freedom in using literature to your advantage. Like, so yeah.
So how did BlackLIT start? So when you were telling your students, like, okay, pick a book to read, and he told you, like, I don't read, Miss, I'm Black, and the other kids agreed with him, what happened after that?
I looked at the books that I was supposed to be teaching him, and it wasn't a Black book inside. And I was just like, well, this is ironic. And then I went home for the holidays. I went back to PG County, where it's the complete opposite. And so I went to open mic night. I went to Busboys and Poets, and I looked at the library, and I was like, I see me right there, right there. I see my student right there, right there. And it just hit me. Like, I wouldn't like to read either.
all I could read was these books that have nothing to do with nothing.
Yeah.
That curriculum that they teach you is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I seen that, and I looked at my best friend, and I was like, BlackLIT. And she was like, BlackLIt? And I'm like, yeah. I'm going to make sure my kids get books with BlackLIt. And because I couldn't open up a bookstore at the time, I started a subscription box where I could like mail my kids books when they graduated out of my class.
You just did that out of the kindness of your heart. Like, I just want to help them read books.
Yeah, I set up
like
the books in my classroom. Like, I would put them, and I was just determined. Like, and some of them didn't like to read. Some of them didn't know how to read. Some of them truly, truly believed that Black people didn't read. And
this was like 10th graders.
And they didn't write. So it was more like, it definitely showed me how privileged I was to grow up in a place like Prince George's County, Maryland, where the representation is all over the place. The principals, the doctors, the police officers. And so I just wanted to give them a glance of what they could be if they just take the glass ceilings off. That's all.
And when you first told me that story, I thought that they were like little kids. These were 10th grade kids, right?
They were in 10th grade.
Yeah. Crazy. So you started a subscription box, and how did it evolve from there? What happened? How did you go from subscription box to an actual brick and mortar? Yeah.
Subscription box, I had to stop teaching, and I was in a warehouse.
Because it was growing that much?
And I was just like, God, I know you didn't give me BlackLIt to just put paper shred in a box. Like, I just know. Like, this is not all you said it could be. And so I went looking for a building so I can get my classroom back.
And that's when you were in the warehouse?
Yeah, when I was in the warehouse, it was just like I can't do the BlackLIt that, like, the mission and vision is, it needs to be out of these walls. Because in the warehouse, people couldn't come in. You could only send stuff out.
So how did people know about it? Like, how was it growing? It went from just your students to like other people?
Online. I would post on Instagram. My students would like wear my t-shirts. I would literally go around Dallas with a 6-foot table and books on it.
Like vendor events?
Yeah. And I would just sell books, sell t-shirts, and that's that.
And it grew from there. That's crazy, because I want to get into like how we actually connected, because that's how I first saw you, was like online. But I remember, I got to tell this story, because I remember after I had attended that event a couple of weeks before, I was like, wow, this is cool. And I was in this space like in my life where God was like starting to speak to me and say things like, okay, if he put something on my heart and tell you to like do something or say it, if you don't do it, like, you know, that feeling like God is talking to you and it's just like, do it. So I was sitting at the first time I ever been in this bookstore, and I was sitting at that event, and God told me, he said, thank them for their yes. And I was like, what does that mean? You know, I'm in my head like, I don't want to talk to nobody. I'm just here. But God just said, thank you for your yes, right? So I stood up and I told them, like, thank you for your yes. Because I forgot the event, but it was just an empowering event. And then I was like, thank y'all for your yes, because your yes has impacted her yes, and her yes has impacted her yes. And I was like, and you were sitting behind the books, behind the register. And I was like, and her over there, like, just her opening up this space. Like, look at what her yes has done for all of us. And after I said that, I was like, okay, God. Then I sat down. And then this woman came up to me afterwards and was like, I really needed to hear what you said. Thank you, blah, blah, blah. And then God was like, was speaking to me, like, go talk to her. And I was like, oh, God, okay. So then I'm like, so I go over there, and I don't really remember our conversation, but I just was curious about the space. Like, you know, do I do this all the time? Blah, blah, blah. And do you remember what you were telling me? Like, you weren't even supposed to be there that day. You was having a bad day.
I was not. I was off of work that day. And I don't know why I was in there. I was supposed to just be dropping something off. And then once I got behind the counter and looked and I wasn't working, I was just honestly in awe of what God had done. And I was just like, okay, I just want to sit and watch, like, not work. And it was a beautiful sight to see, but I was not supposed to be there.
That's crazy. And so then for me, fast forward, maybe a couple of weeks later, I had just got like let go from my job, right? And I was sitting at this coffee shop looking dumb, and I just was like, so you got your answer? I was praying like, God, please get me out of here. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And literally I was sitting down and God was like, go to BlackLIt. And I was like, okay, like I ain't got nothing else to do. I guess I'll just go and work on my podcast stuff there. So I packed up, I came home, got my stuff, and I went to and I was sitting in the store, and the whole time like I'm trying to work on editing stuff, and it wouldn't work. For whatever reason, it wouldn't work. And I sat there for a little bit fiddling around on my computer. And then I finally got up because it was just me and you sitting in there. But the crazy thing is you was playing worship music. And I think that for me, my brain is always like do, and I just needed to sit in God's presence. Mm-hmm. And because of that atmosphere, that's all I could do because my computer wasn't working. So I just had to sit there and let the words minister to me because I'm like, God, like I was praying that you would release me, everything that I was going through. But I'm like, what do I do now? And God was like, just be still.
Yeah. And
so literally that's what that space was for me. And I was just sitting there for probably like a couple hours, just listening to worship music, playing like I was working on my computer, but I wasn't doing anything. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm about to go. And right before I got up to leave, I went and I don't know. I mean, we had just chit chat because I think I had mentioned to you that I had a podcast, and I just started to visualize certain things. And before I left, I remember this man was like delivering boxes. And you slinging these big heavy boxes by yourself. It was T-shirts that was being delivered. Oh, you remember? Do you remember the event that you was trying to prepare for? Mm-hmm. And you was doing it all by yourself. And I was like, "Do you want me to help you?" And so literally, I just helped you start sorting out those T-shirts, and I literally like never left. Like that's how I basically moved into BlackLIT after that because you were preparing for Black on the Block. Yeah, mm-hmm. I remember that day. And you were telling me basically like the help that you had, people were like, some people was out of town. So you was going to just do that whole event by yourself. And I was like, I'll help you. Like, I literally was like, okay, I got you. Tell me what it is. We sorted out the shirts by sizes. And I was like, okay. And when Black on the Block came, literally I stayed from the whole time I got there. We were the last two people to leave.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Thank you for that because...
But I'm just thinking about how that happened. That was like, I literally never left BlackLIT after that. I spent my whole summer at BlackLIT from that moment. But you were so used to just doing events on your own. I could tell like, it was like, okay, this is a lot, but like I can just do it because I have to, you know? That's something that I was like, I've watched you a lot. Just how you just like, you don't complain, you just do it.
I think... sometimes when God gives us a yes, we expect that he gave everybody else around us the yes also. Mm. And that's not always the case. And so when I first started BlackLIT and I felt like I had my yes and I knew I was supposed to do it, the people around me didn't necessarily hear the same thing. Mm-hmm. And so as much as I wanted to be frustrated and get angry at them, I had to realize like, God gave me this vision at this time, not them. Like, I can't expect them to just, okay, immediately. And so, I don't know. That's how I played it. I just realized, like, okay, I'm going to do what he told me to do. Mm-hmm. And pray for help along the way.
Yeah. And it's crazy because you, I guess, will pray for help. But for me at that time, because everything just, like, switched really fast for me. And I was like, God, if you are calling me out here to, like, really trust you with blind faith, I said, I need to see what it looks like. This was my time with God. I'm like, God, I need to see somebody who doesn't know what's on the other side, but they are following it. That was literally my prayer to God. Like, God, please help me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't even know nobody, you know, that's doing these things. And so from that prayer, like for me and God, you know, me and my spending time with God and you praying for help, it's like, you ain't got no job, time to go. Like, what else you gonna do? I would literally get up almost every day, every other day, and go to BlackLIT. And just because of that atmosphere. So that's ultimately what I really wanted to talk about is like the impact of your yes and like how it impacts like other people. You know, it's not really about us. And you said something earlier, like just because God gives you a yes doesn't mean that other people around you are, you know, like that doesn't mean that they're supposed to be in alignment. But I do believe that God will bring those people into your life, you know, Absolutely. And you just have to be willing to accept it, I guess, when it comes, but also know how to discern like who is for me in this season, who's supposed to be on this journey, like, you know, and it's like your baby, so you want to protect the thing that God gave you, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you navigate being like when you start doing this thing, like what was the support like for you? Like when you were doing this, did you just do it all by yourself? Like did somebody come in to help you? How do you go from having this idea to like what it's become now?
I absolutely did not do it by myself. My best friend, she lives far away, but I just remember telling her, and she was like, yeah, like you should do that.
Mm-hmm.
And my little brother, I remember telling him, and he was like, yeah, you should do that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of other people told me I shouldn't, but those two yeses meant so much to me that I just blocked out the noise.
Yeah.
And so, like when my subscription boxes went live, my best friend was the first one to purchase them.
Mm-hmm.
When it got too big for me to pack on my own, my brother would do what he could virtually, and then he moved here to help me. And so they were great. Like my best friend was making jangles, like songs with it, posting big. Before I posted a video, she posted a video. And so, and then also just the community. Like there are truly kind people in this world. So when I was deciding on a name and things like that, I would post like, hey, what do you guys think? Or, but it really has been a community effort. Even when I'm like lugging things to events, like I'm grateful for the men and women who picked up a box when they could. Let me borrow a wagon when they couldn't. And so I definitely did not do it by myself. It has been a community effort from day one.
So how do you navigate like knowing, because there are like, you would think that everybody just has the heart, like, yeah, you're doing a great thing, I want to support you, but there are people in this world who are like, yes, for you, but then also those who are not. So how do you discern, like, who do you involve in this thing that you know God gave you? So like, as you are stewarding over this thing that God gave you, how do you discern that?
I get it wrong.
Okay.
And I just get it right try to get it right more than I get it wrong, to be honest. At first, when I was so focused on not getting it wrong, I was shutting a lot of my help out. And a lot of people that God was sending, I couldn't see it because my heart was hardened. Like I just couldn't see it. And so I just gave myself space to accept God's grace in it all. Like, yeah, I'm going to pick wrong sometime, but God has enough grace to cover it. I also like try to constantly pray, not just for the success of BlackLIT, but for BlackLIT stillness so that we can make decisions in times of chaos. And so I pray about who we let in, and then I honestly just trust God to do the rest.
Yeah. What about when you said get it wrong? Because those are the areas I remember us having this conversation, and I forgot what the situation was, but I think that you didn't really talk about. You didn't want to talk about what, like, this is not going good. You know what I'm saying? And you didn't want to talk about it. And I told you, like, that blessed me when I watched how you handle, like, you had a need and it wasn't, I don't know, I forgot what the situation was. But when I told you, like, Nia, like, it's okay, that it's okay. So what? Like, that blessed me because it let me know, like, when you fail, this is how you handle it. And so from being, like I said, like, I've learned so much from you just watching you from afar. Like, even if I don't say anything, even if I'm not involved, like, watching how you handle things, watching how you handle if people take advantage. Because I know, like, what it's like for me, something that I talked about on the previous episode was like what I struggle with is pride. And I feel like if I open up or if I let you see certain parts and then you take advantage or you make me feel unsafe, you'll never get a chance to play with me again. And that's not really the way we're supposed to handle it, because you do block out your help too, and you block out like opportunities to learn. Something that a mentor actually said to me today was like, you have to give people grace to be human.
Yeah.
And that goes for me and for the other person as well, you know. But when I was telling you, like, you having that need and like watching how you, like, I don't care what other people are saying, like, this is what God said, it don't make sense, but like, let me go to God. Like, let me just stop talking and go to God. Like, I felt like watching how you've handled that was like exactly what I needed to see. Like, how do you steward this thing that's like bigger than you, bigger than anything that you can control? It's like, I don't know who to let in. I don't know which direction this is going, but God, what do I do? But like, what I've watched you do is like people don't see the tear stains on the stage from you crying and praying and continuing to do Bible studies, even on the days that you don't feel like it, or people come in. I can only imagine how like overwhelming it is, like, to constantly have to give out your energy all the time. And it's like, but I still got to be gracious because it's not just about me. It's about this thing that God has given me. I'm a representation of him. You know, I'm just stewarding this thing. Yeah. Like, those are some of the things that I admire the most about how you've navigated just like everything that I know from behind the scenes that the public don't get to see. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's really been a blessing to me. And I think that it's important, like that transparency. I'm not saying you have to like share everything with the whole world, but like, I think that one of the things that really trips us up is like, we see the thing, wow, it's big and it's shiny. And so like you comparing where you are to that big shiny thing, and you think that this person don't have no troubles. Yeah. You think that this person just like, oh, it's figured out. Oh, look how it look how much engagement they got. But you don't know what is going on behind the scenes. And so to be able to witness how you've handled these difficult seasons, you know, like I admire that. So thank you. Like I tell you all the time, like I ain't going nowhere. Like I don't care if ain't nothing going on. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna sit, I'm gonna help. Even if you don't want help, even if you don't want to ask, like I'm gonna be there, because it's more than, for me, like it's not about BlackLIT. It's about Nia, like the heart of you. Like that's what's impacted me. That's what's drawn me to you. Because I feel like even when I was around, I don't know what you was thinking, but like, why she always here? She ain't got nothing to do. Like, no, not really, you know, but like, it could be like, do you want something from me? Like, you know, because people have taken advantage of you. People who started off very kind, but it's like, dang, you didn't mean me well. You used me. And so it could be hard to like let people in. And a lot of times I would pray like, God, well, I'm here because like you led me here. And I don't feel like it's time for me to move on. And being persistent has like, of showing up. Like, I know what it's like to kind of be guarded and not let people close to me. So to meet somebody who I could tell because of the things that you were experiencing, there's a little bit of guard. You had your guard up a little bit, but I'm like, but I'm still watching how you handle people, you know, and I'm like, we're not done here. So I want to talk about like how you have guarded, like, because of the people that have been in your life who didn't necessarily have the best intentions, like, and you felt like, I don't want to trust nobody. Can you give me an example of like what that, like when you let your guard down and you let somebody close? Because like for me, just lingering around, helping you because I genuinely felt led to be here. And it wasn't about anything that I could get from you. It's just like, I feel led to serve here. So that's what I'm going to do. And I felt like I've had to like pray through, like, how do I navigate this? Because I could tell that you was a little guarded and a little hesitant, but like, knowing who you are now, I know it wasn't just because that's how you are. Like, have you gone through anything that's like kept people, like that you had people close to you and they've taken advantage?
Absolutely. More times than I would rather. And I think I just learned to navigate it by trying to see them as God's child and not my enemy.
That's hard.
And so,
because I feel like if somebody wronged you, you don't feel like, dang, you my enemy. Oh, well, like the higher version of me is like, I get it. I know we're fighting a spiritual battle, but like the human in me, it's like, you took advantage of me. Like, oh, you played me. Like, how do you just... You're so sweet.
Basketball, my coach, honestly, my coach, he would, next play.
Okay.
Next, so in my head, it goes like, yes, that hurt. Next play. I just try to get to the next play quickly. And then I also try to look at BlackLIT not just as a business, but just as ministry. Like, people aren't coming in here for me. Like, even when I come in BlackLIT, like, I feel like God would meet me there, whether there were people in there or when people weren't. So when people come in, I just try to give them the grace to get what they need. Not from me, but...
But what about people like in your circle, like betrayal? Because like one thing that I've learned about just business is, like I said, everybody don't mean you well. Some people, like I've had conversations with people and I'm like, your angle is just, I already don't trust you because of the angle that you pitching yourself towards to me, you know? Some people like to latch on or like see what you got and try to take it and make it better. Like, have you dealt with betrayal in that way?
I have, absolutely. I've absolutely dealt with betrayal from inside and outside of my home. But I think I just don't want to be that girl, if that makes sense. Like, forgiveness, I feel like it's such a, like, it's almost like it's cool when you do it. Like, it's cool when we got to go to forgiveness for God or go to God for forgiveness. But when it's time to forgive, we real slow. Yeah. And just there was a season in my life, even now sometimes, like I find myself too slow to forgive to the point where now I'm behind in doing and being obedient and doing what God told me to do because I'm mad and I got attitude.
Oof.
And so it's just like forgiveness has such a way of, if unforgiveness can really lead to some dangerous sins. And it's like, you almost feel justified because like, oh, they wronged me.
Yep.
But it's like, now look at all the wrong you're about to do because of it. And so when I'm wronged, I try to make a quick decision. Like, are we about to work through this? And am I about to forgive this person? Or am I about to forgive this person and separate myself from them? I just try to make the decision quickly. Either way it goes, I have to forgive them. Like, that's my command.
Did you grow up in faith?
Yes. And yes, but both sides of it, if that makes sense.
Like religion?
Like I grew up in faith and I got to see the good and the bad of it. The really ugly parts of like being in the church and expecting people not to fail you, and then they do. And then I got to see both, to be honest. My mom was heavy in the church. We were at church every day. Then there was my dad who, he never took me to church. If I wanted to go, he'll drop me off. But the way he loved me, I felt like I got to see, like that was my first example of God's love for me. So he did such a great job of loving me outside of it that I'm like, oh.
That's a blessing.
So
like learning, we are not born like learning how to like forgive people, and it's just like not. So is this something pivotal that's happened in your journey that like made you be like, dang, I have to forgive you? Because one thing that I'll say about entrepreneurship, and like this is really a faith thing, and like your heart is revealed, especially as a believer. Like I can't be mad at you. It's like God is like, girl, this is not about you, first of all. So it's like, I'm holding this grudge. I don't want to forgive you. So like, I get it now being on this side, but getting there, like I had to go through some things before I understood that, you know, like this, before I knew how to steward this thing the right way. So is this something that's like that pivotal that's happened in your life that like really was like, wow?
My dad.
Okay.
My dad apologized to me, and I seen how much it hurt him. His thought of me not forgiving him hurt him so much.
Wow.
That I was just like, I never. I just didn't. I didn't want him or anybody else to feel that way. Because now we both just sitting here hurt. And then I think also I've watched unforgiveness stop me from moving when I know God has told me to move. And it's just like, okay, I'm mad at you, but I'm disobeying him. I gotta pick and choose. I gotta choose. And so I think that's where it started to kind of move the needle for me. And then also losing people. Like I've experienced a lot of the loss and death with people close to me, and it's like we actually don't have as much time as we think. So yeah.
Wow. It's crazy like how you'll go through some things and then you realize like, wow, this is so much bigger. So like you, as BlackLIT grew into what it is now, like what has kept you, I guess, so persistent in not quitting? Like how do you know like I can't quit? Or do you know that?
Like, I know it, but I also often think about quitting. And I thank God for gracing me with the community around me. And it's like, it's almost like when I'm ready to quit, they're like, And when they're ready to quit, I'm like, And so there's just like this balance of both parties going back to God. And it's like, we'll quit when he tells us to.
Yeah.
Like, we'll stop.
And I got to say something, and I mean, if you don't want me to share it, I won't. But I will never forget the day that we had a Bible study. And I didn't know that, like, you didn't tell nobody, like, hey, we have to pack up because we got to be out of here by Sunday. I think Bible study was like Thursday. And you was like, well, we got to be out of here by Sunday. And you didn't let that be known. We still had the Bible study. Everything was like normal. And you like, yeah, we're going to have to go. And when you told your friends at the end of the day, they said, no, we finna pray. And then
I was speechless. Like I don't even think I got out my full thought. I think I had some more stuff to say. And it was like the way they took my thoughts captive when I couldn't, I knew that it was like a God wink.
Mm-hmm. I referenced you in the episode about God winks, like how you know, like if I'm on the right track and then something will happen, and that's just like God like winking at you. But that's that day when you were like, hey, like we gotta pack up, and everybody's like, what? We're not finna pack up. We finna pray because you need it. Like you like, I can't pay. We are behind. I can't pay anything. Literally the next day, you don't tell people what happened. And like the day after all that praying and crying,
all I knew was it got paid. And I say all I know is because I don't know exactly what situation you're talking about, because God
when
has
it was
done
like that
so
that
many
check,
miracles.
yeah, like
but he's done it so
that it was that time when we had that Bible study, and then they was like, okay, what's behind? And then the next day somebody called you like, hey Nia, we've been trying to get this grant to you. It was like 25, or it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he was like, it's available right now. It was like
instant. It was a loan.
The loan, okay.
It was a loan, and I was like, wow. Like I guess we're not closing.
And so I say that because I will never, like, that carried me. You don't even know the stuff that I was struggling with, just in my purse, like believing like God, like, well, I know that you told me this, but like I'm losing, I don't have no money, how I'm gonna pay this X, Y, and Z. And you went to you modeled that, like you went to God in prayer, not because it was just your idea, but like the people that you had around you was like, nah, we finna pray. The next day your answer was there, like what you needed. And that was the first time I ever seen it, because remind you, like my prayer was like, God, I need to witness what it looks like for somebody. And so that's why I've stayed so close to you, because I'm like, this is a miracle. Like God doing miracles like this. Literally, I was like, oh my God, my mind has been blown just knowing everything that I know behind the scenes. Like, oh God, you do stuff like this. Like when you are in alignment with God's will, is it going to be easy all the time? No. Are you going to suffer? Are you going to question? Are you going to want to quit? Yes. Like it hurts sometimes. It's a sacrifice sometimes, but like what God is bringing out of you during those moments, like that's all that's the whole purpose of it. Because watching you steward well what God's giving you helped me steward well when I didn't have a clue on how I was going to get through, when I didn't know, like if I was on the right track, when I wanted to quit. But I watched you like create a business and then like create space for other people, other believers, other entrepreneurs to like dream and have, like, well, I got space here. That was the first thing we got to talk about. You was like, I was talking about me wanting to like do a live show, and you was like, do it here. You can use this space. And I was like, dang, I wasn't expecting you to say that. That made me dream a little bit bigger. It unlocked something in me. And so like for me, like BlackLIT has it's been so pivotal for like my life. And I know like the impact that it's had on me, I can only imagine what it's done for other people. So I think that that's why you have the community and support behind you, because it's not just about you, it's about us. That's why we're not going to let you quit no matter what. Like,
every other day, I just be like, Lord, are you sure? Are we still going? But it's honestly all God. And since the day I started, it was a miracle. Mm-hmm. And so as long as he wants my yes, he has it. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes we underestimate the mustard seed. Mm-hmm. And it's like sometimes my yes comes out in a whisper. Sometimes I'm able to scream it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I can say yes, but I can't move. And just the way he can meet me where I am, I just love him for it. And it made me want to know him more. Mm-hmm. And I just pray that like, yeah, BlackLIT is cool, but I pray that BlackLIT helps people to know him more. Mm-hmm. Like I did not pray for a business. I did not pray to be an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. But when I was younger, I was taught to serve in ministry. And so once my mentor helped me realize like this could also be a form of ministry, my yes wasn't as movable. Like it wasn't up for negotiation anymore. It was like, this is a yes, whether we shout it, whether we whisper it, whether we write it, it's gonna stay yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed me so many different pieces of God's character
Mm-hmm.
in it all. And so I didn't know God to be a provider before I started BlackLIT.
Mm.
I didn't know God to be a comforter
Mm-hmm.
until I got betrayed. And it's like, we don't like betrayal. We don't like instances where we have to forgive. But if we want to know God, we got to give him space to work rather than just trying to rush ourselves through it or force his hand to take us from the wilderness to the promised land. And it's like, there's so much he wants us to see in between. And so in between literally all the tears, in between all of the funds that we did raise, in between all the good times and the bad times, I can truly see like God's hand on it all. And I think different pieces of the story are for different people. Like, and so I don't know. I just pray that people see the love of God through BlackLIT, through experiencing BlackLIT. And that for me is a well done.
Yeah, I love that. Because I always tell people when I talk about BlackLIT, like BlackLIT is so much more than a bookstore. Bible studies, book signings, like talk about those. Like, where did that even, it makes sense, like a bookstore, have book signings here.
I remember very vividly when I had my subscription boxes. I had fiction, I had nonfiction, and I decided to make a believer's box with faith-based books. And when one of my mentors was like, you might want to leave faith out of it. Like, people don't like that.
Oh,
and
that's
I'm
crazy.
Like, like that's not gonna work. And it was like once I made a decision that I don't have to separate the two. Like, I just didn't. So like, someday you may walk in and BlackLIT is playing 90s R&B, and some days you may walk in and it's worship. And I don't apologize for it. The Bible studies at BlackLIT started because a space was needed, to be honest. And who am I to not allow the space? I didn't pay for it. I can't pay for it on my own. And so, yeah, Bible studies was a no-brainer. That was probably my favorite part.
Literally, I missed him. Same. When I tell you BlackLIT was really like, I went into this not knowing, like I was drawn to you because of your heart and your spirit. But then when I started to see how, like, with the Bible studies, like the impact that it's had on just so many people, like it reminded me, because like I used to teach Bible studies like back in like 2019. We used to host them for young adults, and I had never seen anything, like I hadn't been around it in so long. And so just being able to be there, it helped me in my walk. Like, girl, like when I tell you, like, had it not been for BlackLIT during that time, especially in the beginning of that transition, I would not have made it. Like days when I was so discouraged, like, God, like you play in my face. Like I could just go and get another job, and I'm trusting you. It's like every time, like I don't want to be around, or I don't got nothing to do. Why am I here? Nia called me like, hey, are you free you want to come and work the store? I got to do X, Y, Z. And I was like, thank you. Like I was just like, it gave me something to look forward to when I didn't have nothing. I couldn't see anything. I always looked forward to, like, whether it was a Bible study or a book signing or something, like, it just expanded my mind. And I was able to like connect with people that I never probably would have, or never thought that I could, you know what I'm saying? And to learn, and to just like, my faith was increased just from your faith, watching you believe in a miracle and like speak life into me, and like, hey, no, you need to do this, or what, like, like, I know the impact that it's had on me. And like I said, like, I know that you are not, like, I know you're not operating just because you're Nia and you're cool. Like, I know that God's hand is on you, Yeah, like, listen.
I would have stopped a long time
ago. Because I can only imagine, like, that's why I'm like, how do you know when it's like, okay, God, enough is enough?
I ask him regularly. like regularly. Yeah. Now, with the store being closed, I'm in another season of asking him. Girl. Like, and I go back and forth because, like, if God doesn't do another thing through BlackLIT, or like he's done enough, like, so I'm very grateful. But then it's like, but God, what you promised is it's not here yet.
Yeah, because he ain't done.
And so I often check
Yeah.
I often check to figure out, is this what we're doing or not? And I just try to not get ahead of them.
Yeah. And see, that's why I know, like God's word will not return to him void, because what he told you about BlackLIT, like, it's gonna come to pass. And that's why, even like I was telling you, like, even with the little things that's been happening, it's like, yeah, I understand this, but like, God gave you this is God gave it to you. You're gonna protect it just like you protect your child.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, I know the weapons are forming, but they're not gonna prosper. And that's why, like, as hard as it is, okay, people are around for their advantage and not, you know, like, okay, cool, but what did God say? Like, that's what we got to lean on. Like, well, what did God say? I understand this is hard, but what did God say? And when I tell you, like, now, see, I done seen some miracles, 1, 3, 4, a million little miracles at BlackLIT. And that's why I know that it's not done. Like, what impact do you want BlackLIT to leave on the culture? Like, just our community, our culture, our world. Like, what impact do you want it to have?
I want BlackLIT to just be a reminder for people to not be scared to believe, not be scared to hope, not be scared to dream, and not be scared to rest, to be honest. A lot of what BlackLIT has done is because I've gotten out of God's way and rested. It wasn't until I implemented a Sabbath and kind of surrendered to God that it's like, oh, he actually could do a lot more with my surrender than he could do with me working all crazy. And so I just hope BlackLIT can be somebody's God wink, that he has not forgotten them, he has not forsaken them. He can be their provider, their comforter, their healer, and whatever they need. That's what I hope BlackLIT leaves. And yeah, I'm just excited to see like all the different things that are birthed now. Like it makes me smile when people come in like, oh, I want to open up a bookstore and I'm going to do this. It's just like somebody told me I could, and so I was crazy enough to think that I can. Yes. And so I just want to be that person that lets people know that you can.
And think about from the very beginning of how that started. Like it started from a kid saying, I don't read, to look at all the lives that have been impacted by that moment, like how God will turn those little moments for the good. And that's why, like, even where we are right now, he's not done. Like, BlackLIT is a store that, as we know it, is closed for now. Yeah, but we're just pivoting. Yeah. That's literally it. It's not a period. It's a comma.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And I'm trying to be patient. Yeah. In it all. So that's where I am with it. And so I'm looking forward. I'm expectant.
So how are you changing, Nia? Not like outside of BlackLIT, how would you say like Nia is changing in just this, like the lessons learned through this experience?
I think Nia is starting to see that God really does know my name. I used to be so frustrated with my dad. Like, why would you name me Nia? Like, what, could you not have thought of some more letters and been more creative, or like what? And he's just like, you don't know what that means yet. And it was like, as I got older and as I spent more time with God, and I just started to see like he truly doesn't just do things on accident or like just be out here making mistakes. Nia has changed because I finally realized that God knows my name. And he knows it on purpose, and he has purpose for it. And so I'm just excited to see what happens, to be honest. It's so crazy because when I was younger, I didn't really want to be a mom, but all the things that God has been able to birth through me, it's like, oh, you funny. Like, you got jokes. And I didn't want to be a mom because I was scared. And it was just like the way that God has used my fear. Nia now knows that God can use that too. Like he can use every piece of her.
I love that. What would you tell teenage Nia today? Like, if you can go back and talk to her, like, what would you tell her?
I would tell teenage Nia that what would I tell teenage Nia? I would tell teenage Nia that joy looks good on you. I would tell teenage Nia that two things can be true. Like, give God room for the and. I was a very this or that kid. And just to see how God has allowed all this beauty to come from what I thought was ashes. I'm just very grateful. And so I would tell teenage Nia that two things can be true.
So I love that. What advice would you give somebody who is on a journey right now and they're questioning their assignment that God gave them? Because like what God said and how it looks is not the same. What advice would you give them?
The advice I would give them is to, one, take every thought captive, and not just the bad ones, but also the good ones.
What's that mean? If somebody is like not a believer.
Don't let the thoughts control your emotions. So like whenever, I literally just did this today, but like take all the thoughts, even the bad ones, and go see, like, okay, what did God say about this? Like, is this true? Or is this how I feel? But then by taking the good thoughts captive, what that has done for me is remind me of God's promises in times where the enemy would love to have a field day in my mind. And it's like, who am I going to believe? And so please, like, I would encourage people to please write down when God speaks to you. Like, if he trusts you with the word, please write it down, because there's going to be a time where you need to read it again.
That's good.
And that has helped me through so much. Like days I can flip back and see. And that's one of the favorite parts of my Sabbath, is just to sit and like listen and figure, like, God, what do you want to say? And I just try to write what I feel like he's saying, because there are days where I need to see. Like I need to see. And I just think sometimes people need to know that you're not any less worthy because sometimes you need to see. And it's like Jesus came back, and like some people believed it when they heard like, oh yeah, Jesus is risen. But somebody needed to touch. Who was that? Thomas? Somebody needed to touch and see.
To see, down Thomas, yeah.
To see for themselves. And it's like when God gives you a word, sometimes you need to go back and see it for yourself. And so that has truly helped me.
That's good. Journaling, yes. I agree with writing it down. Like, cause sometimes, like, when God will give you something, if you write it down, like, there's been times where I go back in my journal, like, wow.
Yeah. And I think also doing life with people is another thing that has really helped me. Because I know some people say, like, keep everything to yourself. If I didn't share the promise that God had given me with my best friend, she could have never reminded me when I needed. Like, I had to sit and like, hey, listen, like, God has trusted me with this. And I trust her so much that, like, okay, I'm going to tell you this because I may need a reminder one day. And she's been that person.
I love that. Nia, thank you so much for sharing and being so
You're welcome.
open. One thing before we go. So Let It Be has a playlist. And basically, my playlist is a pick-me-up bank. So, like, on days when I'm feeling low, when I need to be encouraged, when I need to be reminded of what God said, like, need to lift my spirits. Can you tell me up to 3 songs that you, just up to 3, like, like the first songs that come to your mind that I can add to Let It Be the playlist? You can look in your phone if you want.
And the songs are for what now?
Just like it's up, just to uplift and encourage you, like something that you're listening to. It ain't no rah-rah on there, but I don't really think you listen to rah-rah anyway. So.
I know. Sometimes when I be speeding, the song be moving, but It Ain't Over is the one that has got me. Even as a kid, I would listen to that. Like, It's Not Over. What's your name? Marette Brown Clark or something like that?
I don't even know, but I'm going to look it up.
It Ain't Over Until God Says It's Over.
I know the song.
That Lately, channeling more what I needed.
Oh, I love that
has
song.
been tearing me up. Like, tearing me up. And another one I would say is, let me see, what's another one?
What I needed, when I tell you I listen to that song, because it gets you out of yourself. Like, every time I'm like, God, I just know that I knew you wasn't going to come through for me. And he always does. It's like, he never gives me more than what I need. In these seasons, I talk a lot about like daily bread, because at this season, that's all I can handle right now. It's daily bread. Trust me, it's building my faith. It's building my me to be encouraged. Like, daily bread. He gives you what you need. I love that song.
For My Good. I played that so many times.
Tide,
Galvin.
yes, I love Tide.
That will get you. Tide has another one.
It's just something about his worship that just, it's the voice. It's something in his, I don't know. It's just,
you can tell he don't only sing when he feels like singing. Like, I feel like sometimes, like, we sing because we got a song and it's a good one. I appreciate his worship because even when it's not a good one, he gonna get it out.
Fight through.
Yeah,
I love that. So how can people support you?
Please sign the petition. BlackLIT has a petition out right now. You can find it on our social media, I Am BlackLIT, or on our website, IamBlackLIT.com. But please sign the petition. Please be on the lookout for a new location and announcements regarding that. Yeah.
Okay. How do people, if people wanted to connect with you, do you want them to connect with you on socials? Just follow BlackLIT. Where can they find you? On
social media, on everything. We're BlackLIT. So I Am BlackLIT. Please connect with us. We're Instagram mostly.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, that is it. That is all. Nia, thank you so much. I'm Bree Fergie. You can follow me on social media at Bree Fergie. That is Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You can find my website at breefergie.com sign up for my newsletter, because I have a lot of interesting things coming. And we are nearing the end of this season, but I'm happy to have Nia. Like, it's been a long time coming, because I asked her a long time ago. She said no. She said yeah, and then I don't know what happened. But thank you so much for making time and coming and sharing your story. And sharing your story with my audience. I pray that if you are on the other side of like your promise, like you're waiting on God to come through, maybe the obstacles that you are dealing with right now doesn't look like the promise that God made, but like, it's not over. So let our conversation, like Nia's words, like her testimony, my testimony, just be a reminder of you. Like, it's not a period, it's a comma. Like, your story is continuing on. So, but that is it. That is all. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Thank you for watching. Make sure you are subscribed to Bree Fergie on YouTube. Make sure you can subscribe to Let It Be Podcast on all streaming platforms. But until next time, I will see you later. Bye.